Hi, and welcome to another episode of Policy Square, an initiative of Primus Partners along with Business World. Today, we are very fortunate to have T. Koshy, who's the CEO of ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce, an initiative which many believe is going to revolutionize e commerce in India. And when we talk about e commerce in India, India is one of the fastest growing e commerce market. We also have initiatives like Digital India, digital payment, and many other initiatives which have really brought in investment. In fact, industry reports suggest India is the largest recipient or one of the largest recipients of investment into e-commerce or online platform. Many have also believed that ONDC has the potential to revolutionize this sector, like UPI. And to answer many of these questions, we're very fortunate, as I said, to have Mr. T. Koshy, who's the CEO of ONDC. Koshy has been no stranger to driving digital transformation, both in the private and public sector. In public sector, he's been part of NSDL, and in his last stint as consultant to one of the largest Big Four firms, he's led many initiatives. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start right in. You know, Open Network for Digital Commerce. Really, it's an initiative that came in the last 2 years. It hopes to build on the immense growth that India has seen in e-commerce over the last many years. In fact, it is one of the fastest growing market in India. There's a lot of technical part of it, but for our viewers, can you try and explain in simple terms what really is this and how does it benefit customers and businesses?
Thank you, Nilay, and let me just try to make the story simple. See, if you really look at how did internet start, internet started as a very democratic place. If you remember when Lee developed HTTP and put up a DNS server, he made it a public good. So what happened out of it? It grew as a democratic place for everybody to come in. Anybody who could make an HTML place was equally visible. The next stage happened even in the email. We have variety of email providers, but they all use a common open protocol, SMTP. So long as you are able to have a very fine interface for your customers, you can be sure that any message you make will go to any customer, any person in any network. But over a period of time, as the internet grew, it started becoming walled gardens. So the problem, walled gardens has its benefit because somebody is giving a complete integrated service. It comes with fantastic efficiency or scale or whatever it is, the efficiency coming out of scale. But finally it's a walled garden. So what happens is the network externality impact is inside the walled garden. So what it would mean is that if you have the resources to really scale up so fast, winner takes it all.
Okay.
So there are only few complete integrated solutions providing services.
Okay.
So what happens because of that is that innovations, everything has to come from within.
Absolutely.
So the participation that is possible gets restricted. So we wanted to go back to the original thought of internet, make it a democratic place. What it had made for the consumer is that he will have many options to choose from. He will have many suppliers or merchants or IT providers coming with fabulous innovative solutions. In the same fashion, if you look at the seller, he has many avenues to make his product visible to a large cross-section of buyers. So the whole place is becoming a more open and inclusive group, providing service to the right kind of, providing the right service to the right kind of partner instead of trying to force fit something. So as far as the customer is concerned, what's the benefit? He gets more options. He can, based on what he's looking for, at what point of time he's looking for, he can have a 5-star treatment or he can have go on the street.
Sure.
In the same way, the seller can, based on his terms of trade, he can identify his course. So that's why, if you really look at what we are trying to look, is that make a paradigm shift from economies of scale to efficiency coming out of specialization and innovation. And that is going to explode the opportunities, both the buyer and the seller. So other than that, the buyer will still have application to deal with,
Yeah.
where he can decide what he wants to buy.
Mm.
He can put his choices and he'll get it.
Absolutely. I understand that. Koshy, you talked about the fact that democratization of internet, in some senses, during the pandemic, we've also seen e-commerce grow quite rapidly, especially tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Very keen to understand your perspective on how sustainable is that growth and how does ONDC really address not just the tier 1 market, but the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 market, which is where bulk of a consumer are, and I would say a lot of MSMEs who operate out of those cities as well.
Very valid point. We saw the pandemic giving a trigger to e-commerce because there's no other option. But in spite of this growth, in spite of the few transactions happening in small and big towns, look at the penetration, it is still single digit.
That's true.
When it comes to buyers. When it comes to sellers, it is lowest of the single digit. Okay.
Absolutely.
So what we are hoping is that in a democratic place like this, providing opportunities more and more sellers, or even the small and medium sellers, to come in. Today, for example, if I am a small seller, I look at either have to be a partner of one or two large players.
Correct.
Because they are the only option. I'm not saying they're doing anything bad, they're doing
Correct.
fantastic service.
Correct.
But they are the only couple of them. And
Yeah.
since they have set up a certain processes
Hmm.
to meet the satisfaction of their clientele,
Hmm.
they dictate the terms under which anybody should come in.
Fair.
Because it's like, you look at the hotel industry, 5-star hotel, 5-star chain has a certain quality of service at a price.
Absolutely.
So they have defined their quality of service, they have defined their type of service, their terms of trade and everything. So the central intermediary determines how to do.
Hmm.
But in a true market, you need every kind of buyers and sellers offering their products at their terms of trade, so that the power is more on the seller and the buyer, not just on the intermediary. And that is, when you create that kind of an option, you would see, like I said earlier, innovations coming, exploding. So what is ONDC doing? We are only trying two things. One is unbundling. What does it mean? Otherwise, servicing of the seller, to warehousing, to logistics, to buyer onboarding, servicing, everything is done by one person.
Fair.
Now, when you unbundle, there are more components. It's like a Lego block.
Yeah.
And each of them can interoperably make everybody talk to each other.
Fair point.
It is going to give exploding opportunity to put these different blocks together to come out with really solutions that we wouldn't have even thought. When everybody, it's like, if you go to any best hotel, or they will have a certain style.
Yeah.
They put together all of them in a certain fashion.
Hmm.
But if you are able to, unbundle them,
Hmm.
the innovation will come into connecting completely new possibilities. And that is what we are expecting, and that is going to explode the extent of digital trade. Same thing, what if you remember what happened in the payment system.
That's true.
For 60
Yeah.
years,
Absolutely.
we had a growth of 6 to 7% on the digital payment, had reached something like 300 million transactions in a month. In the next 4 years, 300 million has become 4.8 billion.
Absolutely.
Out of which the existing card-based transactions are 300 to 350 million. The others came from different set of people.
Absolutely.
And that is what we expect to unleash.
Yeah. In fact, I just want to pick up that point. But just before I do that, Koshy, you talked about the fact that somewhere the concern was e-commerce should not become a platform play, which is what ONDC in some senses is addressing. But for those large organizations, is this an opportunity or is it a disruptor? How do they see this? Because large operators getting onboarded on the concept is extremely important, at least in the short term, for how ONDC progresses.
So look at this way, for an existing large player, if there are their premise of the scaling up so fast, is to have an absolute control of the market, which is fair.
Yeah.
if I am in that position, I would do the same. There's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So in that case, if there is anything that is disrupting, it is inconvenient, because if it is disrupted, although the market will grow, in a way it reduces my opportunity.
Okay.
Probably I would have been able to get a larger margins at a smaller segment of the market, and I didn't get the market. Now when the market is allowed to be exploding,
Absolutely.
you will have to live up to the expectation of that exploding market to be a part of it. If you decide not to be a part of it, you are going to be the loser.
Yeah.
We saw the similar kind of things even in the payment system.
Correct. Absolutely.
It was nothing to do with private sector or public sector. People who are established players in both segments thought it was not to their interest. But now they've come in and they found it is to their interest.
Yeah.
So without legal mandate, in my opinion and in my experience based on the discussion that you've had, they will have no other option but to be a part of it.
Fair point.
And play as per the new rules,
Yeah.
saying that you have to be in an interoperable market that is going to explode 10 times in a short period of time.
Absolutely, and you talked about financial services sector, rather digital payments in particular. Many have compared ONDC to what UPI did for the digital payments that can do for e-commerce. How true is that assertion, and what really has to happen before ONDC makes the kind of impact you just spoke about when it comes to digital payments?
If you really look at any business, any transaction, it's got two sides. One is you buy a product or a service. Other side, you make a payment against it. That's for every commercial transaction.
Correct.
So what UPI did was all about how efficiently you can transfer money from one place to another.
That's true.
What ONDC is trying to do is how streamlined you can make the movement of goods and service. But when you are trying to do that, it is going to have a lot of changes that is needed in the business processes to adapt to these new rules.
Yeah.
Any such adoption comes with sincere enablement by the people like us who are supposed to do, and adoption by the other people. Anytime when if you look at any transformation that happened, whether it was maybe 100 or 200 years ago when you're trying to introduce electricity in this country,
Correct. Absolutely.
they had to completely rewire their factory layout.
Yeah.
Similarly, many of the small and medium enterprises will have to rewire their business processes.
Correct.
But the one big difference here is that we had been telling them to rewire and improve business process, use digital and so on and so forth. But they could never appreciate, very often it is difficult to appreciate how will it help them. But today, you're going and telling them, boss, you do it. It is at your last mile to the buyer.
Correct.
So this is where the money is there.
Yeah.
So that gives them a lot more interest and incentive to adopt this. Once you do that, then the remaining will fall in place. Because this is touching where it makes the biggest impact, where you make money. And imagine like a small, I know it was a lot of interesting dimensions. Imagine a small entrepreneur based out of some corner of India. Let's say, I come from Kerala, so I say in a small town in Kerala, I just see too. Okay. Today, when you tell him, I said, anyway, I'm selling into my neighborhood market. How does it matter? How does it matter whether I certify? They all know me.
Correct.
So you're telling boss, you just make your catalog. Forget everything. Don't talk about digitalizing everything.
Yeah.
Make your catalog in digital form and make it available. It's not a big. Certainly you're going to get people from Shillong calling you saying that you want it.
Correct.
And how do you reach across them? You don't have the logistics. Don't worry. Logistics providers are already under that. When there is an order coming from Shillong, you look at near the same ONDC, which is a logistic provider, who should take it and deliver that.
Correct.
You need to give them a confidence. Now it makes sense for you to get it certified. So you're talking about a whole transformation that is being engaged. And that is why I see that many of the state governments, like the MSME departments and so on and so forth, are actually realizing, because they all tried to bring in digitalization, they found it is easy to look at the supply side.
That's true.
But whereas demand side was difficult.
Absolutely.
Now the advantage with the ONDC is demand side can be taken for granted.
That brings me to my last question, Koshy. How do you see the evolution of ONDC in the next 1 year or the next 5 years for you to look back and say, look, this is what we wanted to achieve?
If I said, we know what we want to achieve, that's clear. But we know it's going to be a very arduous path, especially whenever you bring this new transformation. How it happens is, first is when people see a brilliant idea, so wow, it's a euphoria.
Yeah.
But then people expect magic in a short period of time.
That's true.
I've gone through a couple of times.
Correct.
Then say, this won't work, man. This is not happening.
Correct.
So what we need as a collective body is to have the confidence and persistence. And then you would see in about 2 to 3 years' time, we'll see the hockey stick model taking it. And as what we have to do in ONDC is to have that confidence and persistence and bring the right kind of people to reach that point of inflection, which is, any of the such large-scale digital transformation, in my opinion, about 3 to 4 years. For me, with the grey hair, I had the opportunity to do 2-3 times, so now I can look back and say yes.
No, you've always created legacy, Koshy, so this is going to be one of them. And as I say to many of my clients, when you have a transformation in front of you which benefits consumer, don't resist it, be part of it.
Sure.
And I suspect ONDC is going to be part of such change going forward. Thank you so much for joining us today at Policy Square, something that Business World and Premise Partners do every fortnight. And Koshy, we hope to convey your message of how ONDC would make changes to the entire digital commerce, the innovation, to a much larger audience. Thank you once again for being with us today.
Thank you, Noah. It was a fantastic chat that we had. It was really triggering a lot of thoughts in my mind, and I'm sure that many people will benefit by the whole of it, and I'll be happy to
absolutely and just
collaborate in future to make sure that this message goes far and wide.
And it's amazing to see both of us being on the other side of our consulting lives. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.